Hello, hello, and welcome everyone to the local universe seminars. Today, we have the honor to introduce Professor Dr. François Hammer from the Paris Observatory, l'Observatoire de Paris. Sorry for my pronunciation, Dr. Hammer, who, who discovered the new concept that morphologies of present-day galaxies can be explained by major mergers of gas-rich galaxies. Professor Hammer will speak about the epoch of dwarf galaxies accretion in the Milky Way halo from Gaia Data Release 3. Let's start.
Many thanks, Andrea. Many thanks to the H1 committee of the IAU for inviting me. This is an honor. What I'd like to present is about how the numerous dwarfs surrounding the Milky Way have been accreted, and especially the time. And I will start with a strong advertisement on the Gaia satellite that is really provide us a lot of revolution in our understanding of the local universe, especially everything related to the Milky Way. Between the second data release of Gaia to the third data release, and gigantic progress has been realized because the number of stars has increased by a factor larger than 4. The proper motion uncertainty has been divided by 2, and even parallax uncertainty has been divided by 1.3. At the time Gaia EDR3, it was a preliminary release of Gaia. Several teams, including ours, went to try to get as best as possible to understand the orbit and to derive the orbital parameter of dwarf galaxy. So we did that with Efan Lee, who is now postdoc in Japan, and also Karine Babuzio, who is responsible of the quality of Gaia data. And in our work, we have fully account for Gaia systematic, which is absolutely the dominant source of error for a dwarf galaxy. It has been followed by another paper led by Giuseppina Battaglia, and they increase even the number of dwarfs that can be for which there can be reliable measurement. So what it means, if you have reliable measurement in 6D, I mean three dimension in space, 3 dimension in velocity, it means that you start to have very accurate estimate of the binding energy on one hand, the angular momentum on the other hand. And this is really the starting point of what I'd like to present today, because it helps us to understand how to understand the Milky Way accretion history, to look what is the expected time for the infall of dwarf spheroidal in Milky Way, and later to understand the consequence, because there are consequences. Obviously, Gaia is changing all the story, and it is quite similar to what has been done with the Large Magellanic Cloud in 2007. Before that, it was believed that LMC was a satellite of the Milky Way. In fact, we know now it is very likely to be a first infall for the LMC, and obviously you may understand it changed a lot the history of the Milky Way. So the first point is when dwarf galaxy have infall into the Milky Way halo, and this can be done from the theory which has been first elaborated by Richard Gott in 1975, so quite a long time ago. It just tells you that a galaxy in a hierarchical scenario, a galaxy is growing with time. Meaning at the time when, for example, the star have been accreted into the bulge or the globular cluster have been accreted into the bulge, their orbital energy was relatively small, meaning their binding energy was relatively large. When the mass continue to accumulate with time. What happens? It happens that the binding energy of the object which have infall the first, okay, for example, 12 billion years ago, typically bulge, then their binding energy becomes extremely large when compared to the last, the newcomers, because those one have been accreted recently and their binding energy is relatively small. So this is so-called the onion model, and it is quite simple to understand because it just means that the first accreted things, okay, are the most bond, which seems to be very natural, and this is proven by all cosmological simulation. So what does it mean? It means if we have a good estimate of the binding energy, we start to have a good estimate of the infall time, which is essential in our understanding of the galaxy. I mean, this is the basis of the what we call galactic archaeology. So what happened to the Milky Way? So we all know this diagram because it has been used by many researchers, and this is coming from the review from Dyson and Belokurov, showing the relation between binding energy and angular momentum of the disk. It shows that the bulge has been formed very early and have a strong, large binding energy when compared to Gaia Sausage Enceladus 9 billion years ago, to the disk and to Sagittarius, typically 6 billion years ago. So what does it mean? This diagram just tell you something very simple, that not only cosmological simulation tell you that the onion model is correct, meaning there is a relation between the logarithms of the binding energy and the arrival time, but this is true for the Milky Way. So what we have done is quite simple, using simply this diagram. It's just to elaborate this relation, the same than the one made by Rocha from cosmological simulation, assuming that Sagittarius in fall was just coinciding with a peak of star formation almost 6 billion years ago. And then, very interesting thing, we find only 3 points, but just a single law. In fact, if you want to put some other events, for example, Kraken or Pontus or some others, they fall exactly on the line. So we may easily have 7 points on this line. And this line seems to be very relevant. So doing this, we can calculate what happened for the dwarf spheroidal because we know their binding energy. And dwarf spheroidal appear to be well at the extrapolation of this line. So it suggests that dwarf spheroidal have arrived much later than obviously the bulge, Gaia Sausage, and even Sagittarius, and their infall time seems to be smaller than 3 billion years. Alors, this has a strong impact because it was believed before Gaia, especially Gaia DR3, it was believed that many of dwarf spheroidal are long-term satellites of the Milky Way. So it changed, obviously, our interpretation and understanding of this object, and this is what I will show in the following. On the other hand, there was some discussion about the validity of this relation, logarithms of binding energy against infall time. And this has been done by Richard de Souza and Eric Bell. They studied the Elvis simulation. So for those who know well cosmological simulation, Elvis simulation is the precursor of the FIRE cosmological simulation. They correspond to halo with a mass between 1 to 3, 10 to 12 solar mass, assumed to be similar or equivalent to the Milky Way. And what they find is they studied 48 main halo, and for 45 of them, they find the same relation, so a relatively linear relation between the logarithms of the binding energy with the accretion time. On the other hand, there are three halos in the simulation, for which this relation seems to be perturbed. because you can perturb this relation if you have, for example, a gigantic bombing of the object, because in such a case you may alter some of the orbit, then some of the orbital energy. And this is one of these specific halo, one of the free halo, for which the merger history is so rich. I mean, there are accretion of big satellite almost every time, including recently. So this is here the most recent accretion in this system. And indeed, you can see that in some case, you may have some discrepancy when you compare to the relation between this, I mean, the logarithm of the energy, to the time. But on the other hand, even if the relation is still scattered, the relation is still here. And it has been suggested by De Souza and Bell that this might be the case for example, the recent passage of a massive LMC, Large Magellanic Cloud. But indeed, looking to the result, it will only affect the objects that are satellite of satellite, that are satellite of the LMC, meaning they can only affect 3 to 4 dwarf galaxy, ultra-faint dwarf, in fact, among almost 80. So it can change a little bit the result, but only a little bit. It won't affect, I mean, in case it won't affect any events that will have appeared much earlier, for example, Gaia Association Centaurus or Sagittarius. So by consequence, this perturb halo looks to represent much better object with very recent and very rich merger history, which is the case for example, Centaurus A, 1 billion years ago, a major merger, or M31, 2.5 billion years ago, a major merger. So we stand with a relationship in the Milky Way that is in fact also predicted by the FIRE cosmological simulation. This is one of the halo from Garrison Kimmel et al. So this is again logarithm for binding energy against look-back time. And this is a typical sub-halo. The point corresponds to the sub-halo. And interestingly, if you assume that the dwarf spheroidal are long-term satellites, for example, their infall at 8, 9 billion years ago, you are clearly discrepant from the relation based on cosmological simulation. So the only way to reconcile this object with the simulation is to have them with an infall time smaller than 3 billion years ago. So it just suggests that from cosmological simulation, whatever, if you put baryon or not, to, I mean, explain the large orbital energy or the small binding energy of dwarf spheroidal, you need to have them accreted the last in the Milky Way. So we come back to this plot. And obviously, one important question I hope many of you may have is, okay, fine, but we know that the progenitor of dwarf spheroidal should be a gas-rich dwarf irregular, typically. So the question, if this dwarf irregular have infall less than 3 billion years ago, in principle, you should expect there should be some star formation. But we know that some dwarf spheroidal, Ursae Minor, for example, Draco or Sculptor, seems to possess only odd stars. And this is why what it motivates us, and especially one of us, Yanbin Yang, to look in much more detail on the color magnitude diagram of dwarf spheroidal. And in fact, the result is quite striking. So what has been done by Yang et al. In 2024 was to look to the color magnitude diagram and to use Gaia. And Gaia is so powerful because with Gaia, you have not to distinguish, I mean, star from the Milky Way with star from the dwarf. You can use a very specific filtering that is proper motion filtering. And proper motion filtering is simply fantastic because you had, in fact, two dimensions to do this filtering. And it results that after the filtering, it let a small number of stars here in that area. But that area is not something simple. It's something we know the property of stars there. In fact, these stars are bluer than the red giant branch, and they are much brighter than the horizontal branch. So to understand this star, we have worked with Piercarlo Bonifacio, Elisabetta Caffo, who are specialists of stellar metallicity and ages. And we have obtained at the same time some spectroscopy for this object. And being able to elaborate and to understand what are the stars. So the stars are core helium burning stars. And from spectroscopy, we are able to establish with some good accuracy the metallicity and the age, then the mass. Those stars are really massive, which is not surprising for bright stars. Their mass is larger than 1.8 solar mass. And because of that, and this is detected in Sculptor, because of that, they cannot be blue stragglers. I mean, generally, there might be some contamination by blue stragglers. So blue stragglers are just the collision between two stars that refresh the star and may provoke some stars that look like similar to young star. The problem with this scenario of blue straggler is in Sculptor, there is almost no star formation during the last 7 billion years, I mean, and meaning that the turn-off point is very well defined. You cannot have a star that is more massive than 0.9 solar mass. So it means you cannot have two stars having a mass of 1.8 solar mass. So those stars are clearly young stars in Sculptor. So it is really a major discovery. Sculptor was believed to be completely dead in terms of star formation. Apparently, there is small star formation, small but real star formation, meaning in a recent past, there were gas in Sculptor. But not only in Sculptor. We also examine other galaxies, such as Ursae Minor, Draco, Sextant. For Carina and Fornax, we know already that those two galaxies have a lot of star formation, recent star formation. So it means that it seems that in all Milky Way dwarf spheroidal, there is relatively recent star formation, meaning it is very consistent with a very recent infall and not consistent with the scenario of having dwarf spheroidal being long-term satellite of the Milky Way. So now the question is just what are the consequences of this? About the nature now of Milky Way dwarf. And actually, there are some big consequences you will see immediately. So the first things, we know that their progenitor should be gas-rich progenitor. And they should lose their gas, and they should also be transformed because gas-rich dwarf are generally supported by rotation, while we know that dwarf spheroidal are supported by dispersion. And this simulation show to you, this is made by Gizmo, using the Gizmo that is a full hydrodynamical solver. And it showed to you the evolution of the dwarf. You see the arrow shows the dwarf motion inside the Milky Way. This small insert show to you the orbit of the dwarf. And running this in cyan, you have the gas. And as you can see, passing through the galactic coronae is a very bad story because clearly the galactic coronae dominates and then the gas is removed, but gradually from the dwarf. And finally, you arrive to a system that is completely transformed because it has been checked by turbulent shock tide gas loss. And you are transformed in less than one orbit. You have been able to transform completely the dwarf. So interestingly, in this, we have used a dark matter-free progenitor. And this has some impact. The first thing is only by itself, you start from a very eccentric orbit and you capture the object. So it means ram pressure help to capture the sculptor progenitor. But now I will present you another story. What would happen if the progenitor is dark dominated? So in such a case, a gas-rich progenitor can also lose the gas. There is absolutely no problem. The ram pressure is still efficient. It changes a little bit the story, but you can also lose things. The problem you have if you are this system dark matter dominated, it will prevent the stellar content to be transformed between a rotational system to a dispersion supported system. And you will arrive at the end of the process to a rotating object instead of a fully dispersed object. And in both cases, dark matter free or dark matter dominate, you reproduce the velocity dispersion, which was considered as a measurement of the dark matter in a system. In fact, with a dark matter-free object, you can reproduce this because this velocity dispersion reflects the state of the star before the system has infall into the Milky Way, so it was gas dominate, but also the turbulence and all the effects that have been impacted the object during the infall. So, in other words, the high velocity dispersion in such a case is no more a probe of the dark matter content. So, as a conclusion, the first very important result is coming from Gaia. If you consider the binding energy of dwarf, it is 5 times smaller than Gaia's Enceladus or 3 times smaller than Sagittarius. And knowing the events Gaia's Enceladus and Sagittarius, we can estimate that the infall of dwarf is less than 3 billion years ago. So 3 billion years ago, at the scale of an object at, let's say, 50, 70 kiloparsec, means they have no time to perform more than an orbit. They perform less than a single orbit. So in such a case, we have to understand how this object can be transformed, because we know that dwarf irregular are generally, especially in the range of mass of dwarf spheroidal, are rotationally supported. So we need to transform them into dispersion dominated system. We need to realize a system that is so much out of equilibrium that the sigma, I mean the dispersion, the velocity dispersion can be very high. And it was quite surprising, but it has a problem if you add too much dark matter in this system, because it will prevent this fast transformation from rotation supported to dispersion supported. And in fact, Neil Cole has submitted a paper on WLM that show that it might be a very good progenitor for such a case, a small dark matter in dwarf irregular. Then this scenario is not only coming from a pure understanding of the orbital energy versus time accretion, I mean cosmological model. It comes from also the discovery of young star in all dwarf spheroidal that is absolutely compliant with that. And finally, another thing that is very compliant is, for some of you, you may have heard that many teams now have recovered stars very far from the dwarf centers, and it's not quite simple to explain that. While in the case of object fully out of equilibrium, we expect to have that. We predict that. We predict star very far, because star, after the gas has been removed, have to expand. So another important point for people who try to estimate the Milky Way mass, if dwarf arrive for the first time, obviously you cannot use them to estimate the Milky Way mass because you will neglect the initial velocity in the balance between gravitational field and kinetic energy. So I'm almost finished. I'd like, if you like, we maybe keep posted because we are now performing from Gaia, Sausage, and Enceladus a merger that may explain many, many properties of our Milky Way. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Francois. Oh, I'm mute to Andrew.
Thank you. Yes, sorry, I was trying to turn on the mic. Thanks a lot, Dr. Harmer, for your interesting talk. And now we have the time to questions or comments. Now we have some time, some minutes for comments.
Yeah, everyone can feel free to ask questions. So because I have unmuted all of you, yeah. So feel free. Yeah.
If you mute everybody, we will have no question.
Yes.
For sure.
Actually,
So
I'm curious as what do you mean? Oh, Bruce.
Bruce,
You go first.
Yeah, hi,
Bruce.
thanks. Yeah, a wonderful talk. Are you suggesting that all the local dwarf toroidals were low in dark matter?
Alors, that's a very good question. We have one point with Coma Berenice because orbital energy of Coma Berenice is really intermediate between Sagittarius and other dwarf. So this one we have some question and we are studying because it appears that Coma Berenice has a very strange story. For example, it has collided with Sagittarius very recently. So I prefer for this one to postpone a little bit. But for those one that are further away, because Coma Berenice is relatively close to us, but for those which are further away, I will say yes. It's like, you have a direct relationship between the orbital energy and the apocenter. So the further away is an object, the larger is the orbital energy, or the smaller is the binding energy. For example, for Leo 1, that's obvious. Leo 1 is leaving us now, but it's very, very far away. So there are some few objects and there are some mysteries still. Completely. Thank you for the question. Sege 1 is really something we have also to understand better. But I will say for the immense majority of the, let's say, 80 dwarf spheroidal or ultra-faint dwarf, I think they look like, for many of them, not all, but many of them, they look like to be very destroy object, especially ultra-faint dwarf. And it seems that their orbital energy is too large. Yeah.
So the question is about dark matter content, because most dwarf irregulars, when fit to rotation curves and stellar mass, are dominated by dark matter, as you know, long time result. And you're suggesting that if they are coming in to make the dwarf ellipticals, by the time they get in, they look like they didn't have any dark matter. So that's what I'm wondering. Yeah, go ahead.
You're completely right to raise that point because this is a very important point, in fact. I think the situation for dwarf irregular is much less comfortable than what we have believed. Actually, what we are doing, and this is a paper I mentioned by Cole et al., we have studied in very, very detail WLM, which is quite archetypical of an object that has been claimed to be dominated by dark matter. For example, Justin Reed was claiming mass, total mass to light for WLM of 90. And in fact, when you are looking much closer to the object, you realize several things. One thing, you realize that the object is not really rotating, meaning there is the rotation in the approaching side is completely different than the rotation in the receding side, which is really a problem in dynamics. Okay, and finally, he discovered, and that's something it should be published soon on arXiv, that WLM is made by a combination of a bar plus a disk, and the bar dominates a large part of the kinematics. If you have a gigantic bar in a disk, you will agree with me that it doesn't go to have a very strong domination of the dark matter. I agree, so it's one example. Other dwarf, and I think WLM is very good because WLM has a size that is a size mass, I would say, that might be comparable to, let's say, Fornax Sculptor range, typically. Huh? If you go below that, because you are looking to smaller objects, to be progenitor of ultra-faint dwarf, for example, you have to object that it is extremely difficult to derive dark matter from those ones. Extremely difficult. Actually, it needs to do a very thorough analysis of their properties, and I'm not sure it has been done, especially in the local group.
Yeah, thanks. Very interesting.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'm
Um,
my question is
yes, Haifeng.
from your last slide, you mentioned the group clusters can keep their energy from their progenitors. I'm not sure I understand what I understand is right. If the group clusters is from the dwarf galaxies, right, from the epicenter to the pericenter, then the energy will be lost. What do you mean by here? Yeah, you mentioned they keep their energy from their progenitors.
No, very good question. Actually, this is a work that has been done by Akib. So actually, it comes from a paper. Maybe you noticed this paper that is made by Giulia Panini 2 years ago, when they claim, I mean, after Gaia DR2 and Gaia DR3, even more. I don't know if you remember, but there was a kind of industry in trying to relate events in the Milky Way, Gaia Association Enceladus, Sagittarius, Pontus, Kraken, etc. There are papers by Christian. There are a lot of papers on this. Trying to show that there is an association between, for example, Gaia Association Enceladus and several globular clusters. Okay, and in fact, this has been when Giulia Panini published, they find a completely different story, and this is linked to the way you populate a galaxy with globular cluster. So I'm not speaking about globular cluster of dwarf. I'm speaking about a globular cluster in a major merger. What happened? I mean, you have two possibilities, and the paper by Panini argues that after the merger, they lose their orbital energy due to dynamical friction. Okay, and this is what they show here. They populate at t equals 0 here. This is a disk. This is a secondary here. And this is the same thing seen at John. Okay, and here this is the energy of the system. And you can see after 5 billion years that many systems show a very broad range in energy, meaning that globular cluster in such a case cannot you cannot relate this globular cluster to Gaia Association Enceladus because you don't know the energy. And the way to relate them was with the energy and angular momentum.
Okay.
In fact, there is something wrong in that process, because what has been done by Panini was to associate the globular cluster inside the disk of the galaxy. But we know that most of the globular clusters of the Milky Way are not associated to the disk. They are associated to the halo or to the bulge for most of them. And we know even more from all the work that has been done on tidal shock. We know that globular clusters that are in the disk, there are few of them, are rapidly destroyed due to their passage to the disk to high density. I mean, here you have a lot of dynamical friction. If instead of associating globular cluster in the disk, you associate globular cluster in the halo initially, at the end you arrive to a relatively narrow range for the globular cluster. It just tells you, yes, you can associate globular cluster to past major merger event.
Thanks.
Okay. Mhm. Very
So it is
interesting talk.
paper in
Yes,
preparation.
we will wait for that paper, Francois.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, you have to tell you who's my student, who is next door.
Okay. I think that there is no more question or comments. Hai Feng, we can finish here the
Okay,
seminar.
okay, I stop the recording.
Yes.